Manual Dsek, pearls and pitfalls. The producers have no financial interest. Just starting your journey of manual Dsek? Don't fall before you've even started. Before starting donor lamellar dissection on the artificial anterior chamber, make sure that the tubings underneath are not popping out. Once the pressure is built well, the cornea feels hard to tap and donor epithelium suddenly appears hazy. Bubble struggle. This is a sign when the bubble inside the chamber is struggling to expand, an indication of inadequate pressure. See how badly the tubings are popping out. This device is faulty. This donor button does not have a uniform scleral rim width. Ideal rims should be 2 to 3 mm wide. This rim is very wide and will cause problems during button loading. See how the button loses centration when the fixator is placed. Because of poor seal, chamber pressure will remain inadequate. When the fixator is removed, the button fails to come along with the fixator, an indicator of poor seal. When the fixator is removed following a good seal, the button will remain stuck to the fixator. Large scleral rims must be trimmed manually before loading on the artificial anterior chamber. This is now a well-formed chamber with high tension. Part of the limbus away from the side of the tubings is deliberately kept overexposed. A 350 or 400 microns guarded depth blade is used to make the initial long smiley groove at the overexposed limbus. A bevel-up crescent plate splits the cornea into 2 layers up to the optical center marked beforehand. The device is now picked up in the non-dominant hand and tilted to facilitate further dissection using blunt lamellar corneal dissectors. Note that when the chamber is well formed, the cornea shows no striae during dissection. It is imperative to complete the dissection up to the limbus all around. Note how inadequate chamber pressure causes undue corneal folds, making lamellar dissection very difficult. It is useful to mark the area of the groove. This serves as a reference landmark while punching the donor cornea. Make sure to release the clamps on both tubings just before unloading the graft. The donor button is then kept away with a little corneal preservation medium over the endothelial side. Failure to release the clamps can generate negative pressure and suck the cornea inwards. Buckling of the cornea can result in endothelial damage. The patient's corneal center and optical zone are marked after epithelial debridement. Trypan blue is used to stain the Descemet's membrane. Avoid air bubbles during staining. Remove the air and repeat stain in cases of inadvertent bubbles. Make small side ports for air injection and graft manipulation. Stain the side ports in cases of very hazy cornea. Once Descemet's peeling is done, examine the tissue removed to look for incomplete peel. In cases of very adherent Descemet's membrane, avoid inadvertent tugging on the posterior stroma. Piecemeal removal of Descemet's membrane warrants careful assessment of completion of the step. A long flat steel instrument such as a spatula or a lamellar dissector, when swept through the anterior chamber, highlights blue stained areas of residual DM in the light reflected from the instrument. Perform a trial for tight airfill and leaky areas before introducing the graft. Punch the donor cornea about 3.5 to 4 mm less than the host corneal diameter. Gently raise the posterior lamella atraumatically and mark the dry stromal side with a stained instrument tip. A 26 gauge needle is bent similar to a capsulotomy needle, except that the tip is bent at a more obtuse angle. A second standby 26 gauge needle is bent as shown with its tip facing sideways. While inserting the unfolded graft over visco, if the needle gets stuck to the graft, a spatula can be used to tap the graft down and release the needle. A 60-40 folded graft is needled in without visco. The second bent needle is used through the side port to unfold the graft. Before any further manipulation, the main wound is sutured. When the graft is folded upwards, tight air bubble under the graft is not recommended. In an attempt to release the fold from the interface side, air suddenly enters the interface. To release an upward fold, it is better to keep fluid in the chamber instead of air and unroll the fold with gentle jets of fluid from the interface. A downward fold, on the other hand, can be released with air injection under the graft. As a last-ditch attempt, a grossly decentered graft, if not amenable to centration with no touch sweeping, may be centered using a reverse Sinskey hook from a peripheral point on the endothelial side. This is a case of Dsek for failed penetrating keratoplasty. Note that the air cannula is unable to enter the anterior chamber freely and reach under the graft. Finally, when air is injected, it suddenly pushes the graft down and enters the interface. The interface bubble is let out by depressing the graft through the main wound. The second attempt to inject air once again pushes the graft down, causing a large interface bubble. The interface bubble can also be let out by using jets of fluid in the interface. The third attempt, and lo! The air enters interface yet again. All three attempts have failed because they were done from the same side. This is possibly due to an internal ledge at the graft host junction near the left side port area. Despite cautious injections, if air behaves abnormally, it is better to change the site of injection. Finally, the site of air injection is changed and air opposes the graft well. Last but not the least, the speculum should be carefully lifted and removed by the surgeon himself to prevent any air leak, because the match is not over till the last ball. Thank you.